GTI. 3 letters that carry a ridiculous amount of weight. For nearly 50 years, they've stood for one thing more than anything else. A car that's fun when you want it to be, practical when you need it to be, and just fast enough to make every drive feel a little bit special. But if I'm being honest, over the last few years, the GTI has started to lose a little bit of edge. Still very good, still very capable, but maybe just a little bit too polite. So today I'm driving the Volkswagen Golf GTI Clubsport, known to enthusiasts as the Mark 8.5. And the big question is simple. Is this the GTI that brings the spark back? Is this what the standard GTI should have been all along? Because this isn't just a styling pack or a badge exercise. This is a Golf which has been sharpened, stiffened, reworked and turned up in all the right places, without forgetting that it still has to work as a Golf. Hey guys, I'm Tish and welcome back to Auto Social UK. Today we're back in familiar territory. Those that know me will know that I have a soft spot for anything with a GTI badge. And today I'm going to find out if VW still has what it takes to build the ultimate daily with the GTI Clubsport. Oh, and if you like new car reviews and car content, then good news, you're in the right place. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Firstly, however, why don't we have a little bit of a GTI history lesson? The Golf GTI has been around since 1976, and in that time it's become a benchmark for hot hatches. Not because it's always been the most extreme, but because it's always nailed the balance. The Clubsport name first appeared as a more focused, more aggressive take on the GTI, sitting neatly between the standard car and the all-wheel drive Golf R. More power, sharper handling, and a bit more attitude, but still everyday usability. The Mark 8.5 GTI Clubsport sticks to that exact formula. This isn't trying to be a track special, it's trying to be the best possible version of the front-wheel drive performance Golf. The car that I'm driving uses the familiar 2-litre turbocharged EA888 4-cylinder engine, and in this Clubsport form it delivers 296 horsepower sent to the front wheels through a 7-speed DSG gearbox that's managed by a reworked electronically controlled limited slip differential. 0 to 62 miles per hour takes just 5.6 seconds, which makes it noticeably quicker than the standard GTI, and it will run to 155 miles per hour or 167 miles per hour if you go for the race package. What matters, however, is how the Clubsport delivers that power, and we'll come back to that properly after we talk about the pretty stuff. Look, I understand, when it comes to the Golf, it's never going to be everybody's favourite performance car. Some people like things that look more aggressive. They don't want a car which flies under the radar. But for many, that's the exact reason they love the GTI performance cars so much, because they are able to blend in with the general public, and only those that know that you've got a performance car will know by the visual styling. Now, when it comes to the Clubsport, of course, this has been dialed up, so it's much easier to tell that this is a performance Golf. It has a more aggressive bumper, you've got a lower splitter, and you've also got this red detailing which runs from the central badge and into the lights, which I really like. I also controversially like that at night this badge glows, and it really does give you quite a light display when you turn it on in the dark. Not everyone is going to like that. Like I said, some people like their Golfs to be understated. Now, moving around to the side, once again it has that very familiar Golf styling. This is finished in King's Red, and I don't usually like red cars, even though I own a red GTI, but it was never going to be my first choice. But actually I think it works really well, especially with those red elements in the lights. You've also got the upgraded 19-inch wheels. My favourite personal wheels for this car are either the standard, or I also really like the Teledial Queenstown wheels. I think those look fantastic. Those are some of the most expensive 19 upgrades. These are a little bit cheaper, but they're not my personal favourite. But actually, overall, I think it ties in all of the details. What I like about Golfs is they're simple, they're not over-styled. So adding quite a aggressive alloy wheel actually works quite nicely without taking it over the top. You've of course still got GTI badges everywhere on this car, around the front, along the side and also on the back. and talking about the back, I think that the Clubsport adds just enough drama to keep those of us who have that boy racer hidden deep inside happy, because you do have a much more aggressive rear wing, which has this extended gloss black part, and then you have a wonderful pair of twin tailpipes. You've got proper physical tailpipes, none of that hidden plastic stuff. You can see the real deal, and I think that makes this feel very special. From the moment that you pull away, it's obvious that this isn't just a warmed over GTI. Throttle response is sharper, the gearbox is more alert, and there's more of a sense that the whole car is just keyed in. It feels tighter, more eager and more focused, even at lower speeds. Put your foot down properly and the Clubsport gets on with the job. Just far better than the standard GTI could ever manage. It's quick, but more importantly, it's controlled. There's no scrabbling for grip, no messy torque steer, no drama through the steering wheel. The front end just digs in and it really goes. And that is the biggest takeaway. This is a car which makes its performance usable. Volkswagen hasn't just added power and hoped for the best. The front end geometry has been reworked, the adaptive dampeners have been recalibrated, and everything is just tied together by VW's Vehicle Dynamics Manager, which constantly balances the steering, the throttle response, the braking and the suspension. The result is a car that lets you get on with the power far earlier than you may expect. Mid-corner, you can really feel the differential pulling the car into line, tightening you on the exit and firing you down the next straight line with real intent. It gives you confidence, the kind that makes you push a little bit harder, carry a little bit more speed, and trust the front end completely. Steering feel isn't completely the last word in feedback. This isn't a Civic Type R, but accuracy is excellent, and the car goes exactly where you want to put it. It stays composed even when the road surface starts to fall apart. One of the most important things about this car is how configurable it is. So comfort is genuinely comfortable, compliant, relaxed, and perfectly happy doing the motorway miles. Sport, however, is a bit of a step too far for UK roads. It firms everything up aggressively, and on rough B roads, it can really feel unnecessarily harsh. The real sweet spot is Nürburgring mode, oddly labelled as special, which softens the suspension just enough to deal with the bumps and undulations, whilst keeping the drivetrain in its sharpest setting. In that mode, the Clubsport feels alive, fast, stable, grippy, and confidence-inspiring, without ever feeling nervous or edgy. Stepping inside of the Clubsport, and once again, I know that this is going to divide opinions. I think that golf enthusiasts will really like it in here, but those who prefer the finer things from perhaps Audi or BMW might be left slightly disappointed. But there are some real nice highlights, and I'm going to start with one of the best ones. Touch-sensitive buttons on the steering wheel are gone. We've now got proper physical buttons on the steering wheel. And this wheel is nice and chunky, it feels nice when you're driving, leather wrapped, you've got red stitching, and you've also got this flash of red and a GTI badge, which I think is quite nice. There is still quite a lot of gloss black plastic, so you've got gloss black plastic all down the centre console, which is slightly annoying. Many manufacturers have started to ditch this, and it does start to look messy very quickly. I like the fact that you've got this little scroller for your drive controls, drive, reverse and sport. This is pretty nice. I think it looks minimal, it's clean, it's tidy. And then behind it you have the cup holders. So you actually have a couple of cup holders here, and they're configured in a way that you can tuck this little part away and then you can release it, and then it holds your smaller cups in place. Things like Red Bulls, which everybody knows that I'm big on. If it can hold a Red Bull can, then it's good in my eyes. This centre console also has a little bit of storage, which has this kind of like flappy area which you can pop your mobile phone in. Quite like that. And at night it kind of glows, and this Golf, which is embossed in the kind of rubber down there, it glows, which I think is quite a nice touch. these seats. So you have these really supportive sport seats, which are a mix of Alcantara, a little bit of leather on the outside, a little bit of fabric as well. You've got this honeycomb detailing, a red stripe across the middle, and then you've got GTI stitched in them, a little bit of flash of red on the back. These are really nice. They're very supportive. In fact, you may feel that they're a bit too restrictive. They do kind of hug you in place. The negative, however, is this is an expensive Golf, and I do still have manual controls, which I know that that's going to upset some people who may be used to the nicer luxuries from perhaps things like Kia or Hyundai. But overall, I do think it's a very nice layout. Yes, the materials used are not the best. So atop this dashboard, you have this kind of in between a plastic and a leather, but that could definitely be higher quality. Underneath, you've got this almost carbon effect, not quite carbon, but the ambient lighting I do feel lifts this car, so that's quite nice. It's a mix. There's some things that I don't like, but overall I think it's a really nice cabin that really suits the GTI Clubsport. Why don't we talk about this central console for a second? Because I know that this has been hugely controversial. The buttons on the steering wheel are back, but we do still have those touch sliders for your climate control. It can be annoying, but I found when driving, I barely need to touch it. When you've set your climate control, you don't really need to fiddle around with it. And if you do get too hot or too cold, you can just use your voice assistants instead. It's not as good as having those physical controls, but you know what? When you live with it, I think you just get used to it. I also like the fact that you have lots of shortcuts on this screen. You'll find shortcuts all along the bottom for your climate control, your heated seats. And then up the top, you have shortcuts for things like your driver assist systems and your drive modes. These are all really easy to find. You also can pull down on the screen and then you'll find a selection of extra different shortcuts that you use often. Once again, buttons would be preferred, but I do like that they've worked with this to try and make it as easy as it can be. So what about the space in the rear? Like I said, this is a Golf, and that means that it needs to do all the family stuff as well as it needs to do the performance stuff. So what's it like in the rear? Well, I will say that I was pleasantly surprised to see tri-zone climate control. That does make it much nicer for people to live with. You also have two ISOFIX fitments in the back as well as a third one on the passenger's seat as well. You have a pull-down armrest with a couple of cup holders, and you still have through loading. This is something which I'm seeing less and less of nowadays, but it really does help with practicality if you want to load longer items like skis. You'll also find two USB-C chargers in the back here as well. And as you can see, legroom and headroom is pretty decent. The only thing that is not great in the back here is you have this quite significant transition tunnel. This is definitely one of the biggest downfalls that you notice with petrol cars or diesel cars compared to electric cars. Electric, you can have a completely flat floor, and that means getting three in the back is easy because there's loads of legroom. Whereas in here, it's not quite as good because they have to straddle that central console. Although, if you did have three small people, I think it would be perfectly acceptable. I do like the fact that you've got pockets on the backs of these seats. You've got these ones up here for your mobile phone and some down here for slightly larger items. I would say maps, but I'm pretty sure nobody uses a map nowadays. And you've also got some storage inside of the doors, which is felt lined, which I think is brilliant and definitely not a given in this class. So yes, it may feel slightly cheaper if you come to the plastics atop the door, but overall it's a really nice cabin of your standard family car. But what about the boot space? Has that been compromised on this performance model? Well, it's very much just business as usual when it comes to the boot. So inside of here you get 374 litres, which I think is just very slightly less than if you go for a standard Golf. You still open it the same way by pushing on the Golf badge. And then inside of the boot, you get this nice square opening. I would say it's a no frills boot, despite the space being, well, very, very competitive to other cars in this bracket. It's not particularly finished nicely. Is there any surprise there? There's a little bit of a load lip, which is slightly annoying, and you have this plastic area when you're entering it, but there is quite a lot of bumper, so I would be worried if you're putting dogs or anything in the back that it would get a little bit scratched, so you might want to get a nice bumper cover for that. The parcel shelf, yeah, that's a little bit cheap feeling as well. You do have an underfloor boot, which you can drop down to add just a little bit more storage. And there is space around what would normally be a spare wheel if you go for other cars. But this has got the sound system. You've got the upgraded sound system, so you've actually got a subwoofer, which is in there. But there's quite a lot of storage around that as well. There is a 12-volt charger just hidden in there. And there's a couple of cheap kind of hanging points. Like I said, it's very much no frills, but still extremely practical. Now, for a near 300 horsepower hot hatch, the Clubsport is actually surprisingly reasonable to run. So official economy is around 38 miles per gallon. And while you're not going to be seeing that when you're driving enthusiastically, it is perfectly capable of sensible numbers on a long run. Now, this won't be a Golf for company car drivers. Emissions and BIC do make sure of that. But as a privately owned performance car, it's actually far from ridiculous. At around £43,000, the GTI Clubsport sits in an interesting space. It's more expensive than the standard GTI, but it's still comfortably cheaper than cars like the Honda Civic Type R, which now pushes past £50,000. And compared to the Audi S3, the Clubsport offers more of the same pace and usability, but with more character and a noticeably lower price point. It's also far more interesting in my eyes than the all-wheel drive Golf R, which has become almost too common for its own good. Now, let's face it, the GTI Clubsport isn't trying to be the wildest hot hatch there ever was. What it's trying to be is the most complete front-wheel drive performance Golf, and in that, I absolutely think it succeeds. It's faster, sharper, and more engaging than the standard Golf GTI, without losing that everyday usability that's made the badge so famous in the first place. In a world where petrol hot hatches are slowly disappearing, the GTI Clubsport feels like a proper celebration of what made them great. And honestly, I think this may be the sweet spot in the Golf range. But I have an audience who is quite divided when it comes to Volkswagen products. Some of you love them and some of you not so much. So I want to know, what do you think of the GTI Clubsport? Do you agree with me? This is the best Golf you can buy. Let me know in the comments down below. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. And if you want to see more, then make sure you hit the subscribe button. Until next time, guys. See you later.